Did you know that the FBI once hammered trigger guards, hurled pistols like frisbees, and fired thousands of rounds in search of what they were hoping would be their ultimate standard-issue sidearm? Apparently, their official winner wasn't the most accurate, the most reliable, or the most anything. So what on earth went wrong? In this video, we'll talk about how 9 different handguns were tested back in 1987, why the FBI's final pick raises eyebrows among firearms enthusiasts, and how the real champion was almost overlooked. Some of the methods they used were more suited to a bizarre carnival game than a serious field test. Yet these were the procedures that influenced recommendations for law enforcement agencies across the nation. Every pistol in the lineup went through punishing trials, but the FBI's scoring system ended up skewed by personal preferences, old-school thinking, and an apparent love affair with the .45 ACP. We're about to look at these 9 handguns, moving through each model's performance, quirks, and the agency's strange conclusions. Let's jump right into the FBI's test results, starting with the most disappointing entry and working our way up to the pistol that eventually left them with no choice but to reconsider their stupid biases. The Ruger P85. While this pistol has a certain charm, it fared poorly in the FBI's testing. In some reports, the P85 experienced serious failures within the first 1,500 rounds. One test sample supposedly died at around 500 rounds, while the other barely surpassed 1,000 before encountering catastrophic issues. That alone put it at the very bottom of the list. When a department invests in a duty gun, they expect it to hold up under rigorous conditions. The P85 was known for being big and robust in theory, yet these particular units broke down in ways that concerned the FBI. They noted its plus points, such as reasonable cost and decent manufacturer support, but reliability was a huge drawback. A sidearm that can't reach a few thousand rounds without major malfunctions isn't what law enforcement wants to bet their lives on. Beyond reliability, the P85 ranked low in accuracy drills compared to the other guns tested. Its weight and ergonomics also drew mixed reactions. Even though Ruger improved later models in the P-series, the original P85 left a sour taste with many shooters back then. Considering the high stakes involved, the FBI rightly put this pistol at the bottom. Thankfully, the P85 was improved in subsequent generations, but for the 1987 test, it earned its unfortunate reputation. The ITM AT84 is This Swiss-made CZ75 clone had a bizarre fate in the FBI's trials. Official paperwork listed it as an IMI product, suggesting a confusion between Israel Military Industries and the actual manufacturer ITM. That clerical error might have doomed its chances from the start. The FBI also required a decocker function, which the AT84 lacked. Curiously, the Glock pistols in the test, which had no decocker either, were not disqualified. This odd double standard probably stemmed from the FBI's misunderstanding or miscommunication about how each pistol's safety system worked. While the AT84 was a solid design, basically a high-quality CZ pattern, bureaucratic details overshadowed its performance. Agents decided it violated the decocker rule, so it was jettisoned. There's some irony in a thoroughly built Swiss pistol being dropped primarily due to a rule that might not have been applied consistently. If certain agents had spent more time shooting it rather than scrutinizing a spec sheet, perhaps the AT84 would have impressed them. Its reliability was reportedly on par with similar steel-framed pistols of the day, but none of that mattered once they concluded it was out. The lesson here is that sometimes a good firearm can slip through the cracks when bureaucrats set up rigid and occasionally inconsistent checklists. In the end, the AT84 is remembered as the gun that never really got its chance. The Sig P220. One might assume that a Sig chambered in .45 ACP would dominate. Instead, the P220 ran into trouble during the FBI's drop test, allegedly firing when dropped, a nightmare scenario for any agency. It also had multiple magazine-related failures, which dragged down its reliability scores. Throw in the possibility of a heavier recoil and a first-shot double-action trigger pull that some agents found daunting, and it's easy to see why it placed near the bottom. This was a disappointment for those who believed .45 ACP had a near mystical ability to outperform 9mm. Even though many shooters adore the P220 for its accuracy and durability in civilian use, the specific units tested gave the FBI second thoughts. Magazines were singled out as a primary weakness, and that's never a trivial matter. Any jam or failure to feed can be catastrophic for law enforcement. Despite Sig Sauer's reputation, the P220's performance in this particular test was overshadowed by its 9mm sibling. It's also worth mentioning that the hammering of trigger guards with a mallet, while seemingly extreme, damaged the Sig frames in ways that the FBI couldn't ignore. This might not happen in regular duty use, but the FBI wanted to ensure maximum resilience. Unfortunately for the P220, it just didn't hold up to the punishment the same way some other pistols did. That's how it ended up ranking 8th. The 459's. On paper, this 9mm pistol seemed like a worthy contender. It handled recoil moderately well, it was fairly accurate, and agents found it serviceable. Yet a couple of issues arose. During testing, the rear sight on at least one unit fell off, which is alarming for a qualification course. The FBI also noted the alloy frames might crack over time, typically after a few years of hard use. Accuracy was acceptable, though not mind-blowing. Reliability averaged around one malfunction every 500 rounds, better than some, worse than others. Agents who were comfortable with traditional double-action triggers often appreciated the 459's familiar layout. The magazine capacity was also decent, which made it somewhat appealing in an era when double-stack pistols were still gaining traction. However, the FBI's final evaluation docked points for the sight issue, frame durability concerns, and the usual skepticism about 9mm. Many older agents back then believed .45 ACP was the only round that truly got the job done, so any 9mm in the test had to fight an uphill battle. The 459 was a decent all-around pistol, but lacked the reliability edge and long-term durability that might have propelled it higher. Those factors, combined with the FBI's marked preference for bigger calibers, pushed it lower in the overall ranking. The Glock 19. Imagine a world where the FBI calls a Glock unreliable. That happened here, primarily because the agents tracked failure to lock back on an empty magazine as a stoppage. This likely stemmed from how some shooters gripped the frame or touched the slide stop. It didn't help that the FBI was more accustomed to pistols with heavy double-action first shots. The Glock 19's consistent striker-fired trigger felt foreign to them, and at least one desk pop was reported as an accidental discharge. Despite these negative marks, the truth is that the Glock 19 had hardly any genuine feeding or extraction problems. Those who fired it without inadvertently riding the slide stop discovered that it was quick to get back on target. The compact profile was a plus for agents who preferred a more manageable sidearm, though back in the 80s, bigger was often considered better. Many in the Pro 2A community appreciate the Glock 19's enduring legacy. The FBI, however, gave it middling scores. Strange, considering how ubiquitous it has become afterward. The 645. This pistol was crowned the FBI's official pick, which continues to baffle those who read the raw data. Chambered in .45 ACP, the 645 appealed to agents who believed bigger bullets would solve everything. The FBI's notes, however, reveal that the 645 had recurring issues with the safety lever coming loose and reliability that didn't match some of the 9mm competitors. But the agency repeatedly praised its stopping power, manufacturer support, and brand reputation. In a flawed scoring system, that was enough to propel it high on the list. Some testers claimed the double-action pull was cumbersome, though they felt the single-action follow-up shots were smooth enough. The 645 did have a sturdy build, but it hardly wowed anyone with its combat accuracy or mean rounds between stoppages. Still, the .45 ACP mystique won out, as did the idea that a larger caliber automatically confers an advantage. Time eventually taught us that shot placement and overall reliability can matter more than raw bullet diameter. Many folks in law enforcement and the broader firearm community realized that 9mm technology was catching up fast. Nevertheless, in 1987, the 645 soared to the top of the official scoreboard. That outcome might have made a few big-bore enthusiasts happy, but it left others scratching their heads once they saw how everything else performed. The Beretta 92's. This pistol had already proven itself in the military's XM9 trials, so nobody was surprised when the FBI found it exceptionally reliable. The 92nd posted nearly 1,200 rounds between stoppages, far surpassing many others, but the agency took off points for issues like parts availability, presumably because Beretta is Italian and they worried about ordering spare components in bulk. Some test notes also mentioned an exposed barrel that could burn an agent's hand. The double-action first pull was heavy too. Regardless, the 92 was among the best performers in actual shooting. It also performed very well on the FBI qualification course, landing near the top. Many of us in the Pro 2A sphere recognize that the Beretta 92's design has a certain timeless quality. It's smooth in recoil, typically accurate, and built to handle thousands upon thousands of rounds. Yet the FBI's final ranking placed it lower than one might expect, largely due to subjective concerns and a perceived difficulty sourcing parts. While the 92 eventually earned widespread adoption by the U.S. military, the Bureau's official verdict didn't give it the praise it deserved. The Sig P226. This is where Sig redeemed itself. The P226 fired 9mm instead of 45, and that smaller caliber turned out to be a huge advantage in a high round count test. Agents recorded more than 600 rounds between failures, which is excellent. Accuracy scores were also high, although the heavy double-action trigger pull and somewhat unusual sights took some getting used to. The pistol did suffer when its trigger guard was smashed with a mallet, an odd test, but one the FBI insisted on performing. Aside from that, the P226 was considered a top contender, even by those who preferred bigger bullets. Over the years, the P226 proved itself in military and elite law enforcement units around the world, cementing its reputation in the Pro 2A community. The FBI recognized its strengths, but still ended up placing it behind certain 45 ACP pistols in the final tally. Many folks look back and question how a pistol that performed so consistently could lose out to less reliable models. Some suspect the foreign manufacturer penalty played a big role in the final points. Whatever the reason, the P226 held its ground and demonstrated that 9mm can be a formidable choice, especially in extended shooting scenarios. Now, with modern ammunition developments, the P226 is often seen as one of the best service pistols ever made. The Glock 17. This is the pistol that excelled in the most meaningful category, the FBI qualification course. Agents who shot it well scored better than with any other sidearm, showing the advantage of a consistent trigger pull and a design that mitigates recoil effectively. Yet official documents listed it as having frequent stoppages, ignoring that most malfunctions were the slide failing to lock back after the last round. True mechanical failures were practically non-existent. Factor in the accidental discharges caused by agents unfamiliar with a shorter, more uniform trigger pull, and you get a skewed official reliability tally. In reality, the Glock 17 was proving to be a game-changer. Its polymer frame was lighter than the metal-framed competition, and it held 17 rounds of 9mm. With improved training, the slide stop problem might never have surfaced at all. Fast forward several years, the FBI adopted Glock pistols in a big way, and countless police departments followed suit. This shift validated what many Pro 2A shooters had known. The Glock's consistency, capacity, and ease of maintenance made it a prime choice. By the time the FBI realized that bullet technology had advanced and that 9mm was more than adequate for duty use, the Glock 17 had already gained a devoted following. The scoreboard from 1987 might have placed it somewhere in the middle, but history tells a different story. When the dust settled, the Glock 17 reigned supreme, and still does in many respects. But that's going to do it for this video. The FBI's 1987 handgun test was supposed to determine the best sidearm for law enforcement, but their results were questionable. Personal biases and outdated preferences for 45 ACP influenced their final choice, yet history later proved them wrong. The real winner? The Glock 17, which they eventually adopted anyway. Do you own a Glock 17? Would you happen to own any of the other pistols on this list? How do you like it? Sound off in the comments. If this video was entertaining, please our channel grow by clicking on the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Click that little bell down there too while you're at it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.